I mean, I'll start the negative. One thing I didn't like was Max saying "COWABUNGA." I gotta say that.
Hey guys, and welcome back for another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast. I'm Jack. I'm here with Liam and Anya.
How's it going?
Hi.
And today we are covering episode 3 of Life is Strange, titled Chaos Theory. Okay, so obviously the start of the episode, Max wakes up from a nightmare involving Kate, and you have an opportunity to explore around her room, but really you get a text from Chloe asking you to meet her outside. Now, I don't know if there's anything in this section in particular that you wanted to touch on, guys. Me personally, I thought it was like a really nice touch really haunting, especially considering the events of my episode at the end of episode 2, whereby Kate died, and there is actually a shrine outside of her room. And then there was also an opportunity as well. You can like bump into Taylor, I think, in the bathroom again. And I don't know, like I wouldn't usually do this, but I think the option came up for like me to blame her. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go through with it. But I think I then did like rewind time. So I think I like blamed Taylor for like the events that happened, but then she like flipped out. I was like, you know what, I need to rewind that. But yeah, I mean, I'll start with you, Anya. Like, is there anything that you wanted to touch on in this particular bit before we go outside?
I think like the whiteboard with Kate, I had her saved in mind, but I remember like watching somebody and they didn't save Kate, and there was just like so much like stuff written on there like RIP, RIP, you're great, you'll miss you. And it's like, man, that just, it sucks that that's actually what happens. Like, she was at a point where she didn't feel like she had anybody in her corner, or like enough people in her corner, and now that she's gone, everyone's like, oh, we loved her so much, you know? And I don't know, something about that's very real and very, yeah, I guess like haunting.
Yeah, I mean, to echo what Anya said, yeah, if it's the slates, if it's the website that says, oh, R.I.P. Kate and stuff, and, you know, even Victoria's slate, you know, probably the biggest bully of them all, is just instantly there, like, oh, we're all there for you, Kate. Whether she means it, whether they're ridden in guilt, that's another story. I also quite like the touch, though, that you mentioned, Jack. I didn't realise there was a shrine for Kate outside, so that's really cool that you can have that as an option. But also, it's a really minor detail, but I just really like the fact that, you know, Max is such a caring friend, looking after Alice the rabbit while Kate's either dead or in hospital. So yeah, just a nice little section to kickstart the episode before we get into our adventure.
Yeah, and of course we then leave the girls' dorms and we meet Chloe outside. And then we have this scene, don't we, where sort of sneaking around, and then we hear Jefferson and Victoria come out. They're chatting with one another, and it's obvious that Victoria's still being a suck up to Jefferson. She really wants to win him round so that she can take the sort of the prize of the everyday heroes contest. And it's really interesting with like sort of like Jefferson at this point, because obviously, I mean, I won't go into spoilers, but you know, he's a very significant character in this game. And the way he's been positioned as sort of like the, you know, the favourite teacher, everyone loves Jefferson. And Victoria's like really going for this, isn't she? So yeah, like it's just an interesting thread. I think it carries on from where it started in episode 1, where again she's like really sort of pushing Jefferson. And we do see a resolution to this in episode 4, which we will cover. But I mean, yeah, I suppose the main crux of this bit is you break into the main campus, don't you? And you have this opportunity where you get to recruit Warren. You're trying to get through this door, and you need certain items to be able to do that, because Chloe seems to be struggling. I'll hand the mic over to you, Liam. Do you just want to talk about this particular bit, you know, whether you enjoyed it, because it is a mini game of sorts as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And like we said, you know, in the other episodes, nice little time travel puzzles going on where you have to like rewind time. You know, the alarm goes up and you have to go on the other side of the door. And it is just, well, pardon the pun, priceless to see Chloe's face when you break in as well. But yeah, I quite like it. I feel a little bad because I don't really ship Max and Warren, and you know, it's like I'm kind of using Warren's science skills to get through this door here. But regardless, you know, there's a bigger picture at stake, so like I don't think there's any harm in it. But yeah, just a nice little fun section, quite eerie as well. Like the music they add to this section, kind of going around the dark corridors. Like we see Blackwell all lit up full of students in the first episode. Now we're seeing it at night where it's abandoned, and I don't know, there's just something quite haunting about that.
It is, yeah. I think back sort of randomly to there's an episode of Doctor Who, isn't there? You know, when they go into the school at night, and it's sort of like, oh, it's quite, I don't know, cause I imagine it quite weird, like without the sort of hustle and bustle of students and teachers are wandering around and whatnot. But yeah, Anya, anything to add?
No, not really.
Sick. Right. Then obviously we do come to the first choice in this episode, whereby obviously because we know the backstory of Chloe, she owes Frank money, and we are her best friends. So we get put in a bit of a dilemma here, and she finds the money in this drawer. But that money is actually for some sort of, is it like some disability fund or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The handicapped fund.
That's it, yeah. So we have this choice whether we leave the money in the drawer or whether we do take it so that she can ultimately pay Frank back. So I'll throw it over to you, Anya. Do you remember what you did?
I did not steal the money because it's for handicapped people. That's so mean.
I didn't either. Like, I was tempted, and I know a lot of my decisions, like, I'm intervening to save Kate. Yeah, so, like, I'm doing very much, like, the beneficial thing, but that kind of screws Max over. I'm arguably not being selfish enough. And I know the money really does help you in the long run, and it helps you in another episode with Frank, but if there was a different form of way of taking money, I probably would have grabbed it, like if it was straight out of Wells' bank account. But because it's for the handicap fund, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But
yeah, and good on them for doing that though, so because it's like you really have to think if you want to do that or not. If it was just like an easy, oh look, some $5,000 that I can just have. Like,
yeah, like I actually really struggled with the choice because I knew like how much it would help Chloe's solution, like, you know, her problems and stuff. But yeah, I just really thought about it. And then I kind of was reassured afterwards with Max's dialogue, because she says, look, if Frank comes at you, we've got my power. And I was like, yeah, that's true. I think that's the right call. But Jack, how about you? We know you've got a savage streak with these games. Did you take the money?
I couldn't, no, not this time. I was like, no, you can't steal the money. Like you said, it's for the handicapped. Sigh of relief. Like, we're all decent people, you know, we're not going to sort of take money away for the handicapped. So yeah, I sort of left it as is, and as you rightly said, she's got the power to go back in time, so there really is no need. So yeah, that's what I did. And you then think, oh, that'll be that, and they go to leave, but then Chloe's sort of wild streak comes out, and she's like, you know what, why don't we go and break into the pool? And I think perhaps this bit for me is where this episode peaks. Of course, you have an opportunity to go into the swimming pool, and you can swim around, you can have some nice moments with Chloe, and I think perhaps maybe this is like arguably the first moment where you could argue that, you know, these two characters, you know, you can ship them together. There is sort of like a romantic undertone there. But yeah, I mean, obviously we do have this scene where David then comes in and you're having to like hide around lockers. I mean, well, at least that was my strategy. Oh, I'll throw it over to you, Liam. So like, when this scene come about, how did you avoid David? And if you wanted to mention anything else previous, go ahead.
Yeah, like, I just want to touch on the pool scene. I just really liked it. I mean, I'll start the negative. One thing I didn't like was Max saying "COWABUNGA." I gotta say that. But everything else is fantastic. I just, a big part of this whole game is just about Chloe and Max's friendship, and it's just nice, their whole dialogue about how they look out for one another. They touch like based on like Rachel again, and I don't know, it's just a really nice bit of dialogue. And the whole pool looks really aesthetic as well. I say it in my gameplay, but you know, it kind of hit home with me, that one as well, because me and my group in town when we were kids used to break into a pool at night. So I just really like, you know, the parallels there. But yeah, when David and the other guard came in, I remember I was there for a really long time because I wanted to like not use my power. I really wanted to just try it myself. So I was sneaking around the lockers all successful, but like the guard outside was just not budging. He kept going back and forth in that little like lobby bit. So I just snuck out the back way, and then it breaks into a cutscene where you and Chloe run out. So I just did it that way. I don't know if there is another way to escape, but yeah. How about you, Anya?
Yeah, I think for mine, I was there for a minute just sitting behind the lockers because I could kind of see the light. I'm like, are you gone or are you not? But yeah, I kind of went through the back as well where you didn't have to like go past them or anything.
There was another guard in the building, was there?
I don't know. I assume so because like one goes into the main pool room, right, and he's torching around there, and I don't think that one's David. And then you break to the front, and then you've got David sort of breaking into the front, or I say breaking, he's the security guard going into the front door, and he yells out like search the whole perimeter. So like I assume he's ordering people, and he's got other guards. And if we see him before the storm as well, we know that there's like a little maintenance team or security team. So I gather there's more than one, and yeah, like it's David and someone else.
Oh, sick. Because for me, like I was edging my way around the locker, and I knew that it was David with the torch. But then yeah, you then have this whole scene where you then run back into the swimming pool room, you get out the back. But I did not clock another guard at all, so I don't know what's going on there. But like I said,
One thing I want to say though, actually, is that I do think it's pretty funny that like David's here and he clearly doesn't just clock on that his stepdaughter's van is in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And then when they drive away, like that like same van is the one driving away. If he had any like, you know, half a brain, he would be able to clock on, oh, that's Chloe that's broken in, but he just doesn't.
Yeah, especially because then he obviously can then go home and then see that it's the same bloody van. But yeah, it's a good point. And then I mean they then make their way back to Chloe's, didn't they, where they can spend the night there. So obviously, yeah, I mean that's probably the next best thing that we can cover. Did you guys kiss Chloe or not?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, agreed. What about you, mate?
Yeah, sorry, Warren.
Toxic Warren.
Yeah, it's weird because I like, I don't know, it might be a controversial one, but I think I kind of ship Chloe more with Rachel, but I just was like, yeah, you know what, I'm going for it. I'm into punk girls, I'm kissing Chloe.
I like too that Chloe's like, now I can text Warren and say he doesn't have a chance.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, you wake up the following morning and you go down some breakfast at obviously Chloe and Joyce's, and you talk about the good old days and how Chloe's been since, you know, Max left and stuff, and sort of how much they've both grown up and changed. And again, like I've got to say, I know I've said it in a previous episode, but characterization, I know that we'll cover this when we do Life is Strange 2, but you know, briefly touching that game, when you're looking at the two main characters, I never really felt anything for them throughout the whole 5 episodes. Within a couple of episodes, within a few scenes of this game, they characterise so well, and whether it's the characters themselves showing certain traits, or whether it's discussions like Max has with Joyce, where you really get to see what happened to Chloe and what her background was. I just thought that the writing team absolutely nailed it. So like, I'm always open in this particular game to really listen and revel in these dialogue scenes. Then of course, obviously you then go to the garage where you can find some more clues about David. So there's like, he's got hidden files in there. There's more surveillance. I think he has even cameras around his own house. And they really are at this point like painting David as like the big bad. I guess like it almost reaffirmed in a weird way that he wasn't going to be the big bad for me. Do you guys remember like when you first played this game, what your thinking was in terms of like, you know, is David good, is David bad, you know? Where did he sit with you?
For the first time, I don't really remember, but I think I like kind of had the similar thought process where it was just like, yeah, obviously this guy is a bit of a creep and a dick, but I don't think that he's behind a lot of like the stuff that's been going on, like with Rachel and all of that. Because clearly some stuff is going on. And I was like, either he's just like really dedicated to security and keeping people safe, or he's just a weirdo. Like, I don't know. But I also didn't really think that he was like the main antagonist, I should say.
Yeah, like I think like because it was episodic, I would spend a lot of time looking at fan theory videos, so a lot of them were correct, so I kind of believed it. And it wasn't me who conjured the theories myself, but I very much buyed into the fact that, yeah, David wasn't the main antagonist of the game. Although I will say, though, that it didn't make me any more sympathetic towards him, because I just didn't like the way he spoke to Chloe or Joyce, and I didn't like the way he harassed Kate, which might or might not have led to her suicide. Well, either way, it's, you know, still piled on her depression. So I just didn't have any sympathy for the man. But I agree. I didn't think he was the main antagonist at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as well, because you know how we've had clips at the end of episodes where you see a camera panning and you see, like, you know, folders and files with all people's names on it from Blackwell. And then you're seeing the files at the garage, and I'm like, it would seem a bit on the nose if he was the big bad, and obviously him being Chloe's stepdad, I think it would be sort of a little bit too much of a coincidence to take. But nonetheless, I think he is a good, well, yeah, he's kind of an antagonist, but like he's not like the main one, is he? Sort of like he's just one sort of thread throughout the game. But obviously you touched on in terms of like having disagreements with David there, Liam, so we'll move on to the next choice, shall we, where they're both having a row, David and Chloe, and you have an opportunity to step in and side with her or side with David. So what did you guys pick?
I sided with Chloe, and it was really satisfying to see all these women tear into David.
Yeah, I did the same. I just was like, I'm not going against Chloe here. At the end of the day, he's spying on his own family. I don't think there's any excuse for that. It's funny as well, because afterwards he's just kind of like looking out the window all upset, and you can talk to him, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. Like a bit of salt in the wound there. But yeah, like I just thought siding with Chloe here. But I am really interested. I don't actually think I know what happens if you side with David there, so that would be really interested. Like, I don't know if that leads to him not getting thrown out the house. I'm unsure. So yeah, that'd be interesting to see.
Well, yeah, honestly, if anyone listening did side with David, then do let us know in the comments, because yeah, I think we've all done the same thing there. We've all sided with Chloe. But of course, we then obviously move location again and head to the diner, because we've got to go and get Frank's keys. And again, it sort of presents this little mini game, which I know for me it almost took a couple of times to do, because I think I pushed him far too quickly, too early. I think so I just walked up to his table and spilled his drink over it, and he flipped the fuck out and went for me. And I was like, okay, that was wrong. Yeah, like I thought it was like a really good little moment. And yeah, I mean, did you guys want to sort of like run through this bit as well, like what your thoughts on it were?
Yeah, I mean, if memory serves correct, isn't this your favourite scene, Anya?
I was just about to say, I was eating those beans is probably my favorite fucking moment of everything of the game.
Oh my god, how did I miss that? I actually wrote that down here as well.
I will admit that I went back to spill his beans and get him all riled up more than once, just because it was so funny.
What I find funny as well is that I had quite a tough time with this puzzle, going back to the cop and Nathan quite a lot, you know, not knowing how to get those keys. I was in the diner for quite a long time, and I must say, he has a massive, like, pile of beans on his plate, and I was probably in there for over half an hour. He doesn't get any further on those beans. He's still got a full plate. I thought I was a slow eater, but Frank takes it to another extreme.
Maybe he got another order.
Yeah, probably. Just he loves beans, man. He was eating those beans. Also, a bit of a sin that he's still got like a whole pizza in his RV, and he's just like not been in that. He's not eating that. He's gone into the diner, just get some more beans, you know. But I will say though, this puzzle I did find quite frustrating, and I found it a little unclear on what I needed to do, like what I needed to get out of Nathan and the cop to get those keys. So like, not a massive criticism. I didn't find this diner scene particularly interesting. It was the right level of challenging, but it just didn't do all that much for me.
Yeah.
It does seem that like the diner puzzles seem to be the ones that, you know, I get stumped on the most. Like, I think back to like the last episode with where you got to get the exact sequence right. You know, like I remember sort of like really working on that one for like a good few goes before I actually got it right. But yeah, I think I do agree. Like obviously you don't want it sort of spoon-fed to you, like in terms of like how to do it and stuff. But yeah, like I can imagine maybe repeat playthroughs like that could get a little bit tedious, but nonetheless we managed to grab the keys and we get to the RV, where we're then faced with another choice, because obviously the dog is in the RV, Frank's dog, and I believe the choice is that you can either throw it into the parking lot or you can, I can't remember.
Throw it on the road.
Oh shit, I was thinking that, but I was like, wow, that seems a bit dark. But yeah, it's either throw it in the road or throw it in the parking lot. Now, I feel like I know what your answers are going to be, but I'll start with you, Liam. What did you pick?
I chose to throw it, like, not on the road, away from the road. I mean, even on my replay, like, because I knew what happened, but even back then I was like, oh, I want to avoid any dog harm here. I'm gonna play the safe option.
So it was the parking lot or the road, and did you say you threw it into the road?
Nah, parking lot.
Oh,
I threw it on the parking lot.
Oh, right. I was oh my god. That's what I've never seen. What does happen if you throw it into the road?
Gets run over.
No. Does he really?
Yeah, and the dog can die.
Oh shit. Oh, well, there we go. Right, we'll swiftly moving on then. But yeah, like, I did the same. What about you, Anya? Throw it in the parking lot?
Yeah. Road is just, seems too, that's, like, just basically handing over, like, run this dog over.
Yeah. Alright, okay. Well, so, I mean, we then search Frank's RV, and I suppose that it's quite a touching moment here, because we've already established the relationship between Chloe and Rachel. They were close friends when Max left. Obviously, Rachel somewhat replaced Max in that sense. But she then finds out that Rachel was having a relationship with Frank, and she didn't tell Chloe about this, so she feels very betrayed. And again, it almost like you can see that it reinforces a lot of her existing beliefs in this world, how she can feel abandoned and quite isolated. And I think that this was like another clever way of characterizing Chloe. I don't know if you guys had the same opinion.
Yeah, and it gets worse too, like if you play Before the Storm, which is the whole like Chloe and Rachel thing and how you choose to play them. Like if you play them as romantically, then it just kind of makes this little thing hurt a little more, where Rachel was seeing Frank and Chloe is just like firm believer that like, yeah, I loved her, she loved me, and makes me sad.
Actually, such a good point, Anya. I never thought about it if it was a romantic thing, that this could actually be perceived as like as Rachel cheating potentially. I actually never stopped to think about that. But yeah, like it's like you mentioned, Jack, it just really throws the abandonment issues on her. Like clearly, like Max is in like her picture again. She like goes momentarily happy. It almost forgets about all like the issues and like the past and stuff. And Nish just props it up again. And you know, like there's a fine line between whether that's Chloe's business, but then it also reinforces the fact that maybe Rachel was potentially quite toxic, being really mysterious, lying to her face, hiding this whole chapter from like, you know, Chloe's life and stuff. And yeah, like to be honest, it's one of those ones where like Chloe's dialogue almost gets very irrational from this point, her mood, but you kind of do understand why, and I do feel really sorry for her, you know, for the next part of the episode, mate.
Yeah, especially because like, obviously she's like so behind, you know, trying to find her, and this feels like a bit of a gut punch. So yeah, I don't know, I just, you know, I really sort of do appreciate like some of these like little character moments, especially with Chloe. But yeah, like you say, she goes off in a bit of a strop, and drops Max off back at her dorm. And this is when Max has a bit of a weird moment with one of the photos. Obviously her power has evolved somewhat, and she hones in on this particular photograph, and she finds herself back in, is it something like a 10-year-old body or something like that, or 12-year-old? It's something when she was younger, and with Chloe anyway. It goes back to the day when Chloe's dad died, and especially where this goes into episode 4, and it's like a spoiler, I'm going to be praising episode 4 to the hills. But again, I thought it was very clever in how it sets up a dilemma later on in the game. But of course, we have another mini game, don't we, with the keys? Did you guys manage to beat it first time? Starting with you, mate.
Yeah, I want to say as well that this whole scene hit me right in the feels, because Chloe's all happy, she's not punked out. You see her life as it should be before the abandonment and stuff, before her life went upside down. And I just she's like, oh, Max is never leaving me, you're never leaving me, Dad. And I'm just there oh, don't do that to me, game. It's just the worst. That's horrible. But yeah, I mean, with the mini game, I thought it was really cool. And it definitely it took me a few times to rewind, because obviously he gets his gadget out to find that I dropped his keys in the vase. So then I was rewind time again, come right back, and I'm chucking them outside the house so you can't find him.
Literally exact same way. I think I ended up hiding it in must have been an empty biscuit packet or something like that. So he's never gonna look there, but then you say, get the gadget out, and he's like, oh, for fuck's sake, you're gonna go and get yourself killed now, mate, cheers.
I also struggled a little bit, put it in a flower pot or something, and then he was like, haha, joke's on you, I can find it, and then I threw it out the house. But yeah, it was very, very in your feels when you know that's the day that he died.
Yeah, I think it does a really good job as well, doesn't it, of bringing Before the Storm's DLC episode as the moment before that happened as well, which I thought was really cool to tie it all together.
Cheers.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you are right, it's a very touching scene, and I know that how this pretty much ends, when you change time and he doesn't leave, it has this moment where there's these photographs come onto the screen, and obviously they're not disappearing, because these things have stayed in, because she has literally changed the course of time. And I don't know, obviously, I think without it getting really deep, I just think that, again, I'm gonna have to comment on the writing. It's so strong, because the way they've managed to knit this whole thing of photographs and time together, because you look at a photograph, it's quite literally a moment in time, isn't it? It's a memory for people. And then the fact that Max has changed this, it's literally the whole, with great power comes great responsibility thing. And you then get to see the impact of it, which I think was, the fact that she's then friends with Victoria, and you then see William alive, and you see Chloe, obviously disabled in a chair. What did you guys think on this whole ending? Did you think, no, this is wrong, or was you thinking, you know what, she's done a good thing in trying to keep Chloe happy and her dad alive?
With this whole power thing, looking at the photographs and shifting the timeline, one thing I really like about this is it evolves Max's power. Something different happens every episode with it. And I just thought it was a really cool way of keeping the game fresh. They could have literally just not touched the power, and it just had the same effect in episode 1, episode 2 throughout. But then in the fact that in episode 2 you see it affects her health, she passes out, and then there's times where she just freezes time. Then there's this one where you can literally chime in on a photo, home in on it, and then go right back in time. And I just thought it was such a brilliant effect that, at the end of the day, Max is just trying to be a good friend, right? She sees Chloe's upset, it all roots back to her dad dying, so she tries to dive in and change that effect. And she doesn't realise, but obviously you wake up and there's that really powerful scene, isn't there, where you're in the Vortex Club, Warren's with that Stella girl, David Madsen's now a bus driver. I just thought it was fantastic the way that like you go back in time and you change one tiny thing, and it literally is like, you know, butterfly effect, isn't it? And then you've completely shifted the whole timeline. And then like, I remember when I first played this episode, I definitely had a sense of panic about me. I was like, oh my god, like, is everything I've done in the first 3 episodes hindered irrelevant because I've just completely fucked the timeline? And yeah, I just thought this was done brilliantly, mate.
Yeah, it really like knew how to like set up the, oh shit, it's like really different now. And then it really hits you when you see Chloe and you're like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't have done this. And I think I remember in that first episode when we were talking about just like having a power, I'm like, yeah, I would love to like go back in time and like reverse time and stuff. But then it's things like this where it's like you want to change one little thing, but then you change a lot of other things in the process. So maybe it's good to just let things play out as they are, but at least something major. Like if you're going back in time to like spill Frank's beans on the floor every now and then, like I did, sure. But like to save someone's life, which I am now realizing is interesting since our whole thing is constantly saving Chloe, and then we went back to save William.
I was going to say as well, like a massive theme of the game, right, is that like, you know, the universe has plans and sometimes you're not supposed to tinker with them, and Max clearly does, and then it has all these like horrible effects which is causing like, you know, the weather to mess up. So yeah, I just thought that was like a really nice way of doing it, of giving you consequence by like concluding this episode with such a like bombshell.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And you know, I'm just glad that the resolution of this game wasn't that it was all in David the bus driver's head. So
yeah.
Big note to end on. So so it's a little hope dig, but you know. I mean, yeah, that concludes the end of episode 3, Life is Strange analysis. Is there anything else, any other additional comments that you guys would like to make before we wrap up?
We have to mention the end, right? With like when you go back to Chloe's house, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, go far away, mate. Honestly, like you go back to Chloe's house, don't you? And you see she's in a wheelchair, like mind blown.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, right? I don't know if I'm reading this wrong, but I actually thought it was a little bit of a controversial ending, because the way I read it is that you're almost like getting rid of one tragedy and swapping it with another, right? Which is what's happened. So by saving William and not having him die in a car crash, you've gone and got Chloe disabled somehow, because she ends up in a car crash. And admittedly, she's alive, but she's rendered disabled and she's in like this fancy high-tech wheelchair. But I just kind of was like, is that the game trying to say that like one death equals one disabled person? And are they like the same? And I was a bit like, oh, is that a controversial ending? I don't know.
Never even thought about it like that, actually.
Yeah,
maybe it was like the game's way of saying that, you know, no matter what you do, you're going to be almost faced with a tragedy or like a dilemma either way. But
someone's getting in a car accident.
Yeah.
It shows you that this family are constantly doomed, right? If it's not one family member, it's another. And the Price family are just like, yeah, they're pretty much cursed, confirmed.
Yeah. You're more unlucky than the Kennedys, for crying out.
Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys!
Yeah, I mean, alright, sweet. We will wrap it up there. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, everyone. And we will see you back in episode 4.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.